On September 23, 2009, an elite crew consisting of Kelly, Anderson, and Harry executed a stunning aerial robbery at a high-security cash depot in Germany. Utilizing a stolen Bell 206 Jet Ranger, they bypassed ground defenses by landing directly on the roof and breaching the facility through a glass skylight. While the group successfully seized millions in cash by paralyzing police response with road spikes and decoy explosives, their perfect plan contained a fatal flaw. Harry, the pilot, operated with a professional arrogance that led him to neglect wearing gloves, leaving a forensic trail of fingerprints and DNA in the cockpit. This single oversight transformed a brilliant getaway into a series of swift arrests, though a significant portion of the participants and the stolen millions remain missing to this day. Before we start, kindly click on the subscribe button. Berlin, Germany, 5:15 a.m. While the industrial district sits draped in dawn shadows, a Bell 206 Jet Ranger cuts through the silence, skimming the rooftops. It isn't there for a tour. It's circling a gray concrete fortress where millions in cash sit waiting to be distributed to banks across the country. Intro. As the helicopter skids touch the roof, three figures, Kelly, Anderson, and Harry, emerge in a blur of black tactical gear. Armed with sledgehammers and explosives, they begin their high-stakes descent through a reinforced glass skylight. This is the story of the most bizarre heist in German history. A crime defined by its surgical precision and a police force left completely checkmated on the ground. Yet, as the team races against a 4-minute response window, a hidden negligence in the cockpit is already preparing to bring their empire of cash crashing down. The midnight acquisition. At 1:30 a.m., bolt cutters snapped the chain-link fence at the private airfield outside Berlin. Harry moved through the darkness toward Hangar 7, where the Bell 206 waited like a caged predator. He'd flown relief missions from this exact facility years ago, knew the guard rotations, the camera blind spots, the fuel logs that wouldn't be checked until morning. Kelly and Anderson flanked him, their breath misting in the September cold. The hangar door yielded to a hydraulic cutter, metal peeling back with an industrial groan. Inside, the Jet Ranger gleamed under emergency lighting. Harry's hands, bare, confident, traced the control panel as the turbine began its ascending whine. For hours until sunrise. For hours until they owned the sky. The infrastructure checkmate. While Harry prepped the helicopter, Kelly and Anderson executed the ground game with surgical efficiency. At 2:47 a.m., they deployed custom-welded caltrips across every major access route leading to the depot, steel spikes designed to shred tires on contact. The industrial district became a minefield in minutes. Police response vehicles would arrive to find their own infrastructure weaponized against them. But the masterstroke targeted the sky itself. At 3:15 a.m., Anderson placed a black duffel bag on the tarmac of the Police Aviation Unit's heliport, 20 kilometers across the city. Stenciled in white paint, bomb. No actual explosives inside, just weighted sandbags and a tangle of wires crude enough to demand a full bomb squad response. The psychology was elegant. Force them to assume the worst, lock down their air assets during the critical window when pursuit mattered most. By 4 a.m., Berlin's emergency response grid had been quietly paralyzed. Ground units would crawl through spiked streets. Air units would sit grounded, waiting for clearance that wouldn't come in time. The city's defenses, built for conventional crime, had never contemplated an enemy who controlled both dimensions simultaneously. The depot sat exposed beneath an empty sky, and somewhere above the rooftops, the Bell 206's rotors were already beginning to turn. Descent into the vault. At 5:15 a.m., the Bell 206 materialized over the depot like a mechanical raptor, its shadow sweeping across the reinforced concrete roof. Harry brought the skids down with practiced precision, the turbines whine cutting through the pre-dawn stillness. The moment contact was made, Kelly and Anderson were already moving, black-clad figures hauling sledgehammers and canvas bags of shaped charges toward the building's weakest point. A reinforced glass skylight designed to let natural light into the administrative offices below. The first sledgehammer strike sent spiderweb cracks radiating across the tempered surface. 3 more blows and the glass gave way in a cascading shower, fragments tumbling 4 stories into the deserted corridor beneath. Anderson rappelled first, his boots hitting tile at 5:17 a.m. Kelly followed, her tactical headset crackling with Harry's voice from the cockpit. For minutes until first responders hit the spikes. Move! The depot's interior was a maze of fluorescent-lit hallways and security doors. But the crew had studied the blueprints for weeks. They knew the cash processing center occupied the second sublevel, a fortified chamber where currency was sorted, counted, and staged for armored transport to banks across Germany. What the blueprints hadn't revealed was the facility's Achilles heel, its own evacuation protocol. At 5:19 a.m., Kelly and Anderson reached the vault level and found chaos frozen in place. Coffee cups still steaming on desks, chairs overturned. The night shift security team had triggered the silent alarm and fled according to procedure, prioritizing lives over assets. In their haste, they'd left the massive vault doors standing wide open, 20 tons of reinforced steel rendered irrelevant by simple human panic. Kelly stepped inside and felt her breath catch. Pallets of bundled euros stretched wall to wall, organized by denomination in industrial shelving units. Hundreds, 50s, 20s, shrink-wrapped bricks of currency representing weeks of distribution inventory. The facility serviced Berlin's entire banking network. This was the arterial heart of the city's cash supply. "We're in," she transmitted. "Vaults open. No breach required." Anderson was already hauling industrial duffel bags from his pack, moving with methodical speed. They'd calculated weight versus helicopter lift capacity down to the kilogram. The Bell 206 could handle roughly 450 kilograms of payload beyond crew weight. That meant selective targeting, only the highest denominations, only the most accessible pallets. No time for greed. This was mathematics. At 5:22 a.m., the first bag was full, 30 kilograms of 500 euro notes. Roughly 750,000 euros compressed into a single load. Then another, and another. The ballet of theft played out in near silence, broken only by the rustle of currency and Harry's periodic updates from above. 3 minutes. 2:30. 2 minutes. By 5:24 a.m., 6 bags sat staged at the base of the skylight, approximately 4.5 million euros ready for extraction. Kelly secured the first bag to the rappelling line and signaled Harry. The winch engaged with a mechanical groan, and the money began its ascent toward the waiting helicopter, rising through the shattered skylight like an offering to the Berlin dawn. The intelligence gap. 1 month earlier, a single-page intelligence report had crossed the desk of Berlin's robbery division. An informant's tip warning of a planned helicopter heist targeting a high-security cash facility. The details were sparse but prescient: aerial approach, multi-person crew, systematic ground disruption. The kind of audacious scenario that sounded more like cinema than criminal reality. The report was filed, discussed in a morning briefing, then effectively shelved. Resources were finite. The tip lacked specifics. No names, no exact location, no timeline. Protecting every cash depot in the city against hypothetical air assault seemed an exercise in paranoia. Standard procedure dictated increased ground patrols, routine security audits, measures that checked bureaucratic boxes without fundamentally altering the vulnerability matrix. No one reinforced the skylights. No one stationed officers on rooftops. No one questioned whether the police helicopter fleet itself might become a target of sabotage. The intelligence sat in a filing cabinet while Kelly, Anderson, and Harry refined their plan with each passing day, exploiting the gap between warning and action. Now, as the Bell 206 lifted off with millions in its belly, that month-old report would be retrieved, reread with sick clarity, and transformed into evidence of the most expensive miscalculation in departmental history: the trace of a fingerprint. The Bell 206 was discovered at 7:43 a.m. in a forest clearing 30 kilometers northwest of Berlin, rotors still warm, cabin empty. Forensic teams descended within the hour, and what they found transformed triumph into catastrophe. Harry's fingerprints decorated the cockpit like a confession, smeared across the cyclic control, the throttle, the instrument panel. Every surface he touched during those adrenaline-soaked minutes bore the whorls and ridges of his bare hands. DNA followed: skin cells on the headset, sweat on the seat leather. He'd piloted the Getaway with professional confidence and amateur carelessness, never considering that the same hands that had flown relief missions years ago were now cataloged in every law enforcement database in Europe. The arrest came 72 hours later. Harry's door splintered inward at dawn, officers flooding his apartment with weapons drawn. Kelly and Anderson vanished into Europe's underworld, taking most of the cash with them. Of the 4.5 million euro stolen, only 900,000 was ever recovered. Harry received 8 years. In interrogation, investigators asked why he hadn't worn gloves. He had no answer, just the haunted look of a man who'd executed brilliance and forgotten basics, watching perfection unravel from a single, inexplicable oversight.